I want to get into this one, Steve, because your good friend, Mr. O. De La Hoya, sorry, maybe that gave too much away. Mr. Oscar DLH, or whatever his name is. That better? That doesn't give away so much. He's proving to me, anyways, that getting punched in the head for a living for years and years and years can often make you say some silly shit later on in life. Because this man is gold, ladies and gentlemen. If you're looking for like silly shit of the week, please tune in to anything that Oscar De La Hoya is saying right now, because it's wacky. And here's the latest one, Steve. I don't know if you heard this or not. Apparently, the Saudis are running out of money because of golf.
Well, he has a point. I think I saw this and thought, got a podcast on this, because you're right. Do go to his YouTube feed after watching this, of course, because it's such fun, and his clapbacks are great, and he doesn't get on with Dana White and is firmly within the DAZN camp. Let me say that to begin with, it seems. Now, so the Saudis put a lot of money into LIV Golf, the Breakaway Golf League.
Sure.
Now they're pulling that money, is my understanding. So you've got to, I don't know, because they're being very careful in Saudi Arabia and saying everything's fine. I've seen some people who've moved over there on X or Twitter, X, that name change, not taken really, and they've been saying it's terrible here. There are bombs raining down. You know, in the early days of the Iran conflict, recent conflict, and now all I get is no, everything's fine. Look at me walking to the mall, everything's fine, and they need that because of the tourist industry. But nothing's coming out of there. So that conspiracy theory of, well, you know, it's going to affect their economy, don't you, is something that a lot of people will be saying. I don't know if that's the case. They've got a ton of cash. They're sitting on an enormous wad of cash. Every drawer in their house is full of cash. But it allows people like Oscar to say, you do know, don't you, that the feeling is that they haven't got the cash. I just think they're getting smart.
Or is this a way? I mean, I can't believe that Oscar De La Hoya would be smart enough to be like, hey, I'm going to say this to try to get them to prove and put on bigger fights and maybe pick some of my fighters. No, that's just not the case. Oscar's batshit is what I'm saying. Like he says some inflammatory shit. There's no doubt about it. But go ahead.
Well, he's a malcontent, isn't he?
Yes.
And, in this WWF versus WCW world of boxing at the moment, we need someone like that who makes those comments, and you say, can't say that. And then somebody comes in with a little less of a comment. You go, oh, maybe it's that. He's the one who opens the doors and says, this is happening, don't you? Somebody else comes in with a little bit of a nuanced comment, and that's the one that people start talking about. Happens all the time in politics, and I believe he's the battering ram.
Well, I mean, he also has to remember that if anybody should be guilty of taking too much money from the Saudis, it's him. What he sold Ring Magazine was probably too much. So, because what it was worth at the time, what it was doing was nothing. When did you really hear about Ring Magazine? Until His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh took over. He didn't.
He's done a superb job with it, yeah. Turki Al-Sheikh, because it is a serious piece of kit. Comes in a bag so you can't read it to the newsagents. You know, I read it virtually a lot of the time. Good articles, long form articles. So yes, it is a great piece of work. Turki Al-Sheikh really cares about boxing, but he's got to balance that with how much money am I spending now? You know, so I suspect that he's thinking, I could put all these fights on, but then he's got to think, well, hang on a minute, I'm answerable to somebody else probably, and I just need to be careful. I can't put these on, but I'd love to do them all.
Do you think Oscar's saying this because this also came out after the Conor Benn fight? And, you know, oh, did they just throw away $15 million on this fight? Listen, we've talked about this before, that if that's the fight that you were paying $15 million for, absolutely, you threw it away. There's no doubt about that. But I think that, and as we've found out now, I think there was always some kind of different plan in play with all of this. I'm not going to feed into what Eddie Hearn is saying and saying there was some kind of collusion or something like that. Or maybe there was. Who knows? You know, hey, sign this now, and we have a gentleman's handshake agreement that will make this happen on the back end later on. You're telling me that doesn't happen between men? Absolutely, that happens. You know, and you just don't have those things recorded. So it'd be really hard for Eddie to prove that there was any kind of collusion on this one anyways. These guys are all way too smart.
But he is still saying that there's still paperwork to be done regarding Conor Benn. So he's still saying that. I saw an interview with Frank Smith, and he was implying that as well. So they are saying still legal stuff to be done. I don't know whether that's because of what you just said, or whether, you know, and there is, or whether they're just holding on to it because they're the underdogs people and the big bads of boxing spanked them.
Yeah, well, and they're doing a good job of spanking a lot of people. Now, I can see like why you would say that if you're Oscar De La Hoya and they just spent that kind of money, like I said, and now, we just lost. We just basically flushed 15 million down the toilet is what he's saying on this, right? Well, sometimes you got to make money. You got to spend money to make money, I think is the old adage, isn't it, Steve? And at this point, it seems like Zuffa is doing a very good job of signing people very fast at this point. There was some kind of hesitancy out the gate, but now that they've got like 4 or 5 shows, we're coming up to Zuffa Boxing 6, I believe, at this point that we're recording this. And they're now starting to sign guys. They just signed, you know, Edgar Berlanga. They just, like I said, they just did this new deal with Conor Benn. I think they just did a deal with Ryan Rozicki. A lot of that stuff, you know, is being backed, as we know, by other people's money. And if you think that some of that money isn't coming from His Excellency, you know, or one of the companies that is associated with, then, well, I got a bridge to sell you. I think that one of the things that they're going to have to do, though, is matchmaking. And now let's get into this, because the Conor Benn matchmaking is going to be atrocious. What do you do with him, Steve? What do you do with Conor Benn, who's a guy who could barely make 149, and there isn't a 149 division in Zuffa? There isn't. There's 147, and then there's 160. So what do you do with Conor Benn? Where does he go now that he's on this new deal?
Well, they've got 2 years, 5 fights. They want to, he wants to go, and Zuffa hasn't said anything, but he wants to go and get that green belt. He wants to fight Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia said, do it in August. You know why Ryan Garcia is saying that? He smacks him around the ring. He beats him up, you know, and that's one of the reasons being because Cole Froch, my good friend Cole Froch, he said, whilst munching on a cucumber sandwich, Swifty, he said, what's happened in that fight? What happened in that fight against Regis Prograis? Why wasn't he ferocious? Where was his punching power? And I said, on a podcast, I didn't say it to his face. I said, well, he's had to come down, and he can't come down. He can't boil himself down. He loses power. He loses interest. He loses speed. He jumps in like he did, like he used to do. He didn't in the second Eubank fight, but he did in the first, and he started to do that again. So I don't think he gets down to 147. I don't think he gets down there at all. I mean, he says he can, but I don't think he does. So I don't know what Zuffa Boxing can do. Are they looking to put a protective wall around him and bring people in? Or are they saying, let's take you out? Now, is he going to super welter? I mean, is he looking to fight people like Sebastian Fundora? No, of course not. Because he said, I could fight Sebastian Fundora. That was put into his mouth in an interview. And he said, yeah, I could fight him, or I could fight Tim Tszyu. Well, that's not a massive fight, mate. That's not a massive fight. So why are you saying that? If you're saying, I am boxing, and Dana White is saying this guy is big time, don't say you're going to fight Tim Tszyu. I mean, I happen to like Tim Tszyu, but he's not, he's not all that. Or does he go up to middleweight, where he can have a tune-up against Denzel Bentley, and then, drum roll please, Tidster, do that third match against Chris Eubank? I see you doing all that with your head. I see you.
Okay. You were almost there. You were edging, Steve. Like, you were right there. And then you right before you had it, you shit in everybody's mouth. That's what you did there. I'll go you one better. Right up to the point to what you said. But take Chris Eubank Jr. out of the mix. Yes, I agree. He has to fight at 160. But the easiest fight to make at 160 is in England. You're right. But it's against an Irishman. And it's against an Irishman that they already have. And his name is Callum Walsh. And that's a guy that they already have. And that is the money fight for Zuffa in England to put them on the map.
It is. And this is the problem.
Steve. I'm fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you're prescient, clearly. And, you are. But let me just piss on your chips slightly. Right. Rather than shit in your mouth, I'll piss on your chips. So I'll micturate on your frites, so that I don't know, and he's going to have to, because he's signed a deal now. Mm-hmm. I don't think Conor Benn would want that fight. I don't think he gets up for it, because, who's that guy? I wanted Ryan Garcia. Who's that guy? I want a title. Well, who's this guy? So it's a big fight. You're right. But is it as big a... He wants the bright lights and the belts, and my dad used to have the big green belt.
Sure.
He doesn't want, he is a small Zuffa Boxing situation that actually is enormous on the night. But what does it mean for me out there? The problem with Conor Benn is he's not looking at Zuffa Boxing. He's looking out there. And Zuffa Boxing is like this. And out there, it's all bright lights and pyro. And that's not what Zuffa Boxing is right now.
Well, at 147, he gets smashed because he can't make that weight. He can't make that weight anymore. When was the last time Conor Benn even fought anybody at 147, let alone fought for a title at 147? It just doesn't happen. So for him to think that that's going to happen, it's not going to be Ryan Garcia. That's not the 147 guy that he ends up fighting. The 147 guy that he ends up fighting is a guy who I think is going to end up very near signing with Zuffa Boxing. That's Rolly Romero. I think that's the 147 fight that Conor Benn might be able to get. Ryan Garcia is out there looking at guys like Shakur Stevenson and the Devin Haney's of the world and stuff like that. Like, he's not looking at Conor Benn. Conor's trying to interject himself into a discussion that he wasn't invited to right now. So he's got to create a new discussion for himself. And that new discussion isn't at 147. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Plus, Zuffa have got to protect him. So, if he goes 147, if he fights Ryan Garcia, if they go, yeah, go on then, because Ryan Garcia is taking the piss at the moment by saying, yeah, August. If they said, Ryan, August, okay, I'll do it because there's no skin off my nose. In fact, you won't even be able to hit my nose. That'll be too quick for you. So if they do that and he punches his head off and he wins, that's the end of the big time for Conor Benn. So Zuffa have to actually get some boxing nous here and protect him and persuade him that he doesn't want that big green belt. He wants a different big green belt.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, he can still get a bag of green because there's plenty of it, because the Saudis aren't running out of money. So he's still going to get some of that money. He's going to be fine. A lot of people don't understand, like a lot of this stuff with the Saudis and saying that they're running out of money is also, every business is structured in such a way, and you know this, where you have ebbs and flows. You have money come in, it sits. You have money go out, it sits. And that's how business fluctuates. And when you have a situation that's going on right now over in the Middle East, this is that we need to sit back and see what's going on. So just because the tap has been turned down to half doesn't mean that the hot water tank is empty, ladies and gentlemen. That is still plenty full. You're gonna get your shower. Stop sitting around thinking that you just got to wait for the sun to warm up your cistern. It doesn't work that way.
It's smart business. You know, if everything's going great and you're thinking we're making tons of profits and we're going to put loads of stuff in and we're getting loads of good publicity, so as soon as those profits start to dip or you see they're about to, you think, what can we look at? What can we pull back on? It's the businesses that say, you got to keep pushing, got to keep growing in times of austerity. They're the ones where they're closing stores. If you say, let's just bring this in and see what we can pull back on until, as you say, the bad days are over, and then we can have a look at where we are again. But they will never be poor.
No,
it's ridiculous.
No, that is a statement. That is a statement that is just silly. It's just not a true statement. There's a lot of true statements out there like this one.
Come to the children. Wu-Tang is for the children. We teach the children.
That's a true statement, Steve.
You fucker. Like, you came at it a different way. Just great. You always do it every time. I never know.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. Hey, and shout out to Wu-Tang for finally getting inducted into the whatever it's worth Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Listen, it's the UK Hall of Fame this year, and don't you forget it.
What? You know what UK stands for? You can go fuck yourself. That's pretty much what that means.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's lovely. Lovely.
Steve, it is always a pleasure. Until next week, thank you so much to everybody who's listening to this on all of your podcast providers. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what we did wrong. Tell us how out to lunch we are. If you think these fights that we're picking and these things that aren't going to happen actually aren't going to happen, well, then let us know, because we'd love to have the discussions and, more importantly, prove you wrong. We can't tell you where our sources come from. All we can tell you is that 95% of the time, we're right. So kiss it, suckers. And remember, if you don't like that, come out swinging. But remember, tuck your chin.